by my illustrious friends Ryan and Dave. Now, some of you might have taken a double take right now and thought, where the fuck is RT? But while RT's away, the mice will play. So we've got tonight, we've jumped in and we've got Ryan and Dave and myself here tonight to, of course, take you through some of those trends, some of the things that we're seeing, some of those emerging trends in the market, and also to have a chat about some of those things that we've seen inside the business and exposure with some of our clients. Now, let me tell you up front, ladies and gentlemen, Axon and the Axonites have been busier than a group of bloody one-armed bricklayers in Baghdad. So I'll just, Ryan, how have you been, mate? Give us a bit of a summary of the last 2 weeks.
Mate, it's been a whirlwind. Obviously, it's a short week this week with Anzac yesterday. But other than that, yeah, we've just got a lot of clients coming through the door, which is fantastic to see from a range of different circumstances. And it's so humbling to be able to talk to these people within the defence community and start to help them create wealth through property. Loving it.
Yeah, and I guess, it's one of those things with you, whilst you're in training and the training wheels are off, because we've got so many clients coming through, it's been an absolute fantastic opportunity for you to see from the simplest through to the most complex portfolio structures to be able to get that understanding. Is that right, mate?
Yeah, it's I'm still in my IETs, I guess, and just drinking from the fire hose, but loving it. Yeah, as I said, a full spectrum of people's circumstances, which is completely normal, right? Everybody's different. Everybody comes with their own stuff. So yeah, it's awesome. Loving it.
And Dave, how are you, the property specialist, been, mate? But both oars in the water I've seen. How have you guys been going?
Yeah, it's been good, mate. This time of year is a little bit disjointed. Obviously, we had Anzac Day, which is a day out of the week. We've got Labor Day coming up next week, which is another day. So we've got a few short weeks. We've just had Easter as well. I had a full week off there. It was bloody fantastic to take a bit of time and just kick back and do nothing for a little while. I was tempted to check my emails every now and then. I couldn't let go fully. But the rest of the property specialists there, Damo James and Shania, took care of everything in my absence, and we just keep on keeping on, and lots more properties becoming available, lots of different types of properties available for clients, and as you guys were just talking about there, different circumstances and different situations for different people. We're looking at all different sorts of properties for them as well.
How do I get your job, mate? That's a bunch of time off. Sounds fantastic.
That's gold. It's awesome.
Isn't it great, Dave, now that, it was a change that we implemented inside of the business not so long ago, whereby instead of people being stuck inside their own silos, like inside the property specialist space and, inside the fabulous build support team, now we've got a centralized location for each of that information to be able to make sure that whilst we are still checking everything on a day-to-day basis, we've now got an entire team sitting on it over each one of those problem sets so that we do get an opportunity to take some respite. Because yes, that's right, ladies and gentlemen, we do need to have a break too. Like, we can't put our Axon cape on every day of the year and come to work and support the defence community.
Yeah, the structure that we have now, and like with anybody, any human being, they don't like change. And it took a little bit of time to get used to it. We used to be very stovepiped in our teams of a coach, property specialist, and build support, all not isolated, but all working independently and separately of each other. That led to a little bit of divergence in the quality of what we were providing and exactly what we were sourcing. We recognise that in the business, Robbie and Tammy are very astute to that sort of stuff.
Yeah.
And they were able to make the changes. And like I said, no one likes change, but sometimes you just got to do it, give it a crack, and see how it goes. And 100%, we are so much more better for it. Like you said, we've got all the coaches there working together. All the property specialists can work together, support each other, and then support the coaches independently as well. And then same for build support there. They're all across each other's work. Us as property specialists are all across each other's work, so that I can afford to take that week off, Ryan. and the team is able to fully support each other and take care of my clients as well in my absence. So it had multiple benefits. What I just spoke about with the support for each other, and also just providing much better level of service to everyone as well.
Yeah, absolutely, mate. Well, as they say, mate, like, change is the only constant, and that's one of the things that I certainly know in Axon and that we embrace. We embrace change when it provides us with a better capacity to be able to service our clients. We absolutely embrace that and jump on it. Not too quick, not knee jerks, but we jump on it to be able to, identify those opportunities or those windows of opportunity whereby we can, make the best of the situation and sort of adapt to those things that are required. Now, as most of you out there as our clients will realize, yesterday was Anzac Day. And as you would all appreciate, being in a business where there's 9 veterans and 4 veteran spouses in the business, it's a day we take quite seriously. So even RT and Tammy afforded us the opportunity to be able to take the day off, to put down our Axon capes and to celebrate and to commemorate with all of our, current serving members and veterans out there. And we went to, every year we have a bit of a tradition now whereby we go down to the Southport. It's run by the Southport RSL, and that's that dawn service that occurs down there in the Southport area. Went down there and then went back to HQ Axon and had a couple of sherbets.
Yep, bacon and egg roll.
Sherbets and a couple of banjos. Had the Axon kids in there, so the entire Axon family was there and attended, which was fantastic. For next year, ladies and gents, if you are in the area, please reach out to us. We send out a newsletter. We send out invites to come down to Axon. We don't get an opportunity very often to meet our clients. So it's one of those opportunities where we can fling open the doors and you get to, not just come and see where it is, that we work and where the magic happens. Some people call it Hogwarts. It's not just, just an opportunity, but it's an opportunity for our clients to come and get to know us, get to know the fabric of who we are. So we're not just another face on the other side of the camera, because, we do build those relationships with you guys, and we absolutely appreciate it. We've got RT in the house. He's in the air above Sydney, he says, and he hopes everyone had a great Anzac Day. G'day, RT, mate. Rest easy. Simo's got this. Now, Simo, you've been out for a little while, mate. So you've had a couple of dawn services as a veteran. But for Ryan and myself, this was the first time out. This was our first Anzac Day as a veteran, mate. How did you feel, Ryan, about that as your first experience outside of the Defence Force?
Yeah, it was a special one. I mean, as most or some of our clients will know, I had a career previous to the military, so I had a lot of Anzac Days as a civilian, and then a bunch while I was in uniform. But this is the first one for me as a veteran. I don't necessarily consider myself a veteran, but it was a really nice day for me to spend with the Axon group and some of our clients. It was lovely to meet clients, but just wear the medals and watch the parade out the front of our building and have a chat to some of our clients about their service. It was a really cool way to spend my first Anzac Day out of uniform.
It is a really
that's an interesting comment you make there, Ryan, where you say you don't really think of yourself as a veteran. For me, people define it in different ways. But for me, if you serve one day in the military, you're a veteran. You're a defence veteran. People might get wrapped up around the axles about having to deploy or go into a warlike situation, become a veteran. Or they might think that they need to serve a long amount of time to be a veteran, or they might need to be discharged to be a veteran. For me, serve one day, or maybe a few days. You're a veteran in my mind anyway.
I 100% Simo. Like, if you signed that unlimited contract with the Australian government, for me, from that point forward, I consider you a veteran. Absolutely. All right, guys, so this is an opportunity, as always, for you to ask unvetted questions to us. Fire your questions at us, and we'll work through them with unscripted responses and give us your best. Let us know what you got. Ryan, have you over the last? So we've had 2 weeks since our last Facebook Live, and as always, we're tracking market trends, and as always, we're tracking client trends as well. What have you noticed over the last couple of weeks, mate, since Robbie and I jumped on the last Facebook Live?
Yeah, I think one of the biggest ones for me, and we talk about when we finish our coaching sessions, we notice clients have penny drop moments, and I'm seeing a really consistent trend of educating people around the differences in savings accounts versus offsets versus redraw. It's a really common thread that people may have heard of offsets, don't really understand the concept and the differences between an offset and a redraw. But then also when you balance that against savings accounts, before we have property, we have savings accounts, but once we move into property investing, we don't have savings accounts anymore. We have offset accounts, which help us reduce our interest while we sleep, essentially.
Absolutely, mate. Like I've also noticed that trend. Funny that we do a lot of coaching together. I've also noticed that, and it's funny that you mentioned the penny drop moment. Like the education process is one of the unique experiences that people have when they go through with Axon. Like it's not just a case of rock up, throw us a couple of bucks, and we'll go away and build you a house. No, we want to make sure that when you're going through the process, you are absolutely confident. How do you build confidence in someone? You build competence through them, and the competence is developed through exposure and through education. And so when we take them through that experience, there's always it varies from person to person and client to client, but there's always that penny drop moment where they go, "Oh fuck, I've got some work to do. I need to take some action to put myself in a better position so that I've got every single dollar that I've got available to me to be working for me. And even while you're asleep, have those dollars working for you so you get the absolute benefit out of that." I've certainly noticed that trend as well, mate. And for me, it's the highlight for me when I'm coaching, clients through the initial coaching series. It's that last page for me is really that timeline when we start to develop people's lives out. Even though most people work in the military and most people are planning experts, it's like a mechanic, right? A mechanic always drives a shit car and always got the worst car in the bloody car yard. People who are excellent at planning don't often apply those skills to their own life. And so when we sit down there and we plan out their lifeline, they get an understanding. Like I got a client last week that sort of looked at his partner and went, "Holy fuck, have we got all that going on over there?" Like it's one of those. For me, it's the most important part of the planning process for us is really identifying people's lifeline, so that when we can then really start to identify when we can bring a property to their life in a safe and controlled manner.
Yeah, look, mate, that was me. I mean, 2018, town planner. Planning's in the name of the career, and as an intelligence officer, and I'd never sat down and planned Amanda and I's lives before. So when we sat down with RT in 2018, got off the call and went, "Holy shit, there's our 5-year plan. Amazing."
Yeah.
And Simo, mate, you've always got your finger on the pulse. I know you blokes, Sanch and I are in the property specialist team, are really always outwards focused, looking at the market trends, looking at the location trends. What have you seen transpiring over the last couple of weeks, mate?
It's actually not necessarily a trend, but it's a little bit of an insight. Something that I've just been thinking about, it really has only just come to me in the last few days, is that I'm currently looking to buy my own house to move into. I've spent the last 15 or 16 years buying investment properties. And for me, when I was buying investment properties, it was purely investment minded. I didn't worry about a lot of the smaller elements that are much more important for myself now as an owner occupier. So for me now, I'm looking at houses and looking at lots, and I'm looking at where they're situated in the lot, looking at how close they are, very specifically to bus stops and amenities and all that sort of stuff. That's important to me now because I'm buying my own house. I'm going to live there for the next 25 years, 30 years. And it sort of like come to me after I've had a few clients where they do get stuck in the weeds a little bit, looking at different elements within the houses that they sort of bring their own personal wants and needs into the houses. And it sort of give me a bit of insight into that, into why they're doing that. They may not have bought investment properties previously, or they might just think those things are important. When you think about tenants, how long they stay in the house, I would love to have tenants that stayed in my houses since they're brand new, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 15 years. Yep. But it's not the case. Turnover, I think for me, just spitballing it, I think maybe the longest I've had tenant was 3 or 4 years, and then they transfer, or they roll out. They roll into another house, whether it's a job change or they want to move somewhere else for a school catchment area or something like that. So yeah, when I'm buying my investment properties, some of those elements aren't important to me. I just want to know the numbers work. I want to know that I've ticked off those 7 key ingredients that we always talk about. And if I can hit all of those, and the numbers work, and everything else is reasonably not important. And it's sort of only just dawned on me in the last couple of days when just thinking about what I'm doing now. And that's why it's taken me 3 months and still looking to buy my own house, because I'm going to be in there 30 years. I want to make it bloody perfect. But yeah, and then I sort of thought about all my investment properties. I didn't worry about all those micro details, and they worked phenomenally for me.
Yeah.
So, yeah, the amount of time and effort that can go into it can be a little bit wasted in that element.
And that's that switch, Simo, that you've highlighted on, mate, that when we're investing, we are thinking with our head and our calculator. We are not thinking with our heart and our wallet. Put yourself in a position as an investment to develop an investment portfolio. Like you said, Simo, we want to be able to target those areas that have the 7 ingredients to a healthy property market, whereby it gives us the best opportunity to get the maximum amount of growth in a sustained way over time. So what we need to do is do the absolute opposite of what Simo is doing right now, which is we need to apply our head and our calculator. If the numbers work and it's in one of those locations that have the 7 ingredients to a healthy property market, we've just lost Simo there, but I'll just continue on with his words because I know he'll
yeah.
We want one of those at home. When we're buying with our head and our calculator, we want to have that house go up in value over time. That's ultimately what we're doing. We're using the rent and the tax to be able, as our holding strategy, to hold that property in the market over time. We do our research, ladies and gentlemen. We absolutely have got it down to a fine art to make sure that we've got the details there for you so that we can have those best returns on the house. So what we don't want to be doing is we don't want to be making our decisions with our heart on our investment property, because let's be honest, you're not going to be living in it. And if it's not going to provide you that returning value, or if you're stipulating additional requirements over the top of an investment property that aren't going to buy you a return, and you're delaying your entry to the market, guess what you're doing? You're reducing your capacity to experience that capital growth over time. So you just dropped out for us there, Simo.
Yeah, back now.
Yeah. So what we don't want to do in summary is we don't want to have our heart and our wallet making the decisions for us when we're developing our strategy for our holding strategy for our properties. Save that shit for when you're in Simo, the avatar, the perfect avatar. Save that shit for when you're going to have your backside in that house and you're going to be experiencing or living in those areas where you want to access those services. You're going to be living in those areas where you want to go out the back and go fishing. Until that point in time, take your heart away from the decision and just focus on using your calculator in your head to make those decisions.
Yep.
Since we're talking about property portfolios and we're talking about structures in place, one of the other trends that I've noticed over the last couple of weeks is, and I am guilty of this myself, and this is why I can stand on a soapbox and discuss this point. Ladies and gentlemen, if you have a property in your portfolio that is not servicing you in the way that it should, you need to take, with coaching and guidance and mentoring, of course, you need not be afraid of getting rid of that property. Like if you're sitting out there and thinking to yourself, I'm a 10 out of 10 kind of guy or gal, or we're a 10 out of 10 family when we make our decisions and the outcomes that we want to achieve, you need to sit down and have a real check on yourself to say, is this property a 10 out of 10 property? Now I can say that because most of you know, as you would have listened to my podcast with RT, I've got a 2 out of 10 property sitting in my portfolio. Now the only reason I haven't given that one the flick is A, because I'm a stubborn bastard, but more importantly, B, is because it's not stopping me from being able to continue down the path of investing. So whilst I'm still being stubborn and having a little bit of my heart in there, I'm very much using my head and my calculator to make the ultimate decision for me to not sell that property. Here we've got a few people in the house. We've got Brooke Turvey with us. We've got CJ Wynn. He's popped in. Franny's here, of course. Franny from the Gold Coast. We've got, who else we got here? Christine Pearl. Who else we got? Amana's in the house with us. We've got Noah. Mickey Gallen is in the house, mate. Mickey Gallen, you are a bloody superstar, mate. Let's talk now a little bit about the correction in the market. So as most of you will know, the RBA, if you don't know already, the RBA has one crude mechanism to be able to slow down the economy. Everybody coming out the back of COVID, people had a whole bunch of beer tokens in their pocket that they weren't able to spend when they were sitting in their house all cooped up and locked up. We came out the back end of COVID. Everybody rushed out of their houses like a bull at a gate and started spending. Of course, what did that do? Supply chains freed up. Everything, we had resources available to us. Everybody started purchasing stuff. They went and started spending those beer tokens. And what did that do to the economy? The direct result of that was, of course, the economy sped up. And it sped up to a point that was unprecedented. They weren't expecting it from the RBA. I think Rob Lowe from the RBA sort of came out and said, you can expect that there's going to be no interest rate rises over the next 2 years. That was his advice just before we sort of hit that freight train of the economy, going through. When that occurs, ladies and gents, the RBA has one primary option available to them. They increase the cash rate. So when they're loaning money to banks, that goes at an interest rate as well. Okay, so then when the banks pass that on, it's called the cash rate. When the banks pass that on, of course, they put the cash buffer on top of that. They then loan that money on to you. Okay, the way in which the RBA is able to slow down the economy by limiting the lending, which therefore limits, the large amount of purchases that are made, they increase the cost of borrowing money. That then removes some of those people from the market that have a lower borrowing capacity. What that has ultimately created, of course, we've seen 10 consecutive and then one pause interest rate rises over the last couple of quarters. That means for us that of course costs more money. It's more expensive for us to be able to borrow money. Okay, what does that do for us? That means our borrowing capacity is lower, our lending capacity is lower, but it's also going to cost us to be able to have those investment properties in our portfolio. So it becomes far more important that you have the right financial structures in place to be able to minimize those costs and minimize the outgoing from your expenses. One of the ways in which we're able to do that, as Ryan touched on earlier, was the effective utilization of an offset account. Okay. Now there is a large difference. People go, why the fuck can't I just have a redraw? Okay. Yep. Of course, redraw also reduces the principal on my home loan. So redraw and offset account in that regard are exactly the same. Where it differs substantially is that a redraw is the bank's money. The bank owns that money. So if you want to get access to that bank, even if it's one of those redraws that you have direct access to, like you can reach in and reach out and use it as an expense account, right? It looks like it's the same outcome for you. Ultimately, though, the bank owns that money. So you don't have capacity to be able to use that for whatever you want to use that for. If, however, you have an offset account sitting off to the side of your bank, side of your home loan, that has the same capacity in terms of lowering that interest that you're paying on that home loan, but it's your money. You can use that money as an everyday account. So you can go out and buy a motorbike. You can take it. Not telling you to do this, but if you want to, you can take it. Don't do it on a salary sacrifice. We'll touch on that later. It allows you to be able to access that money on a day-to-day basis whilst also reducing the amount of interest that you're paying on that home loan. So let's say, for example, someone loses their job or you're between jobs or, a baby's coming into your life. You don't need to go back to the bank and ask them permission to be able to utilize that money to be able to pay down that home loan. If you've got that cash sitting in an offset account, you can redirect those funds to pay off those mortgage repayments month to month to month. And there's no questions asked because it's your cash paying off your home loan. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it's a good point, Luke. I mean, we spoke about this with the client today. I guess the other downside, which you sort of touched on then, is if you're starting to redraw a whole bunch of cash for whatever reason, whether it is a motorbike, four-wheel drive car, God forbid, the bank can start monitoring how much of that cash is going out of the redraw. And then can start asking questions and potentially revalue your situation or reevaluate your financial situation. Whereas if we're sitting it in an offset, it's your cash. They don't really have any oversight of where it's going and why. So it's a really kind of important difference, I think, between why we would keep all in an offset versus all in a redraw.
Yeah, absolutely, mate. Absolutely.
Yeah, also, something else to be mindful of your redraw accounts as well, especially if it's against an investment property, is that when you redraw money from that redraw account or the available funds in that redraw, then if you're not using those funds for something that is another investment, then you have what's known as a mixed funds, basically. So those, you then have a portion of that loan which is tax deductible and a portion that isn't tax deductible. So the interest on that non-tax deductible portion can get quite convoluted, especially if you are putting extra money in, taking money out, putting money in, taking money out constantly over time. It becomes very mixed, and it can be quite difficult for your accountant to work out exactly what portion of that loan is tax deductible and which portion isn't.
You're exactly right, mate. And you will have heard, ladies and gents, on a couple of our little Facebook snippets that we've put out recently. We want to have a quiet investment portfolio so we can live a noisy life. When you start mixing those loans and changing the structures and those sorts of things, it starts to make it very, very difficult. I know that because it makes it difficult for my wife when I move my money around and don't tell her. Another one of the trends that I've seen lately, not just lately, but this is actually one of the heartwarming trends that I'm starting to see with some of our younger clients. Like, it's absolutely fucking amazing when we sit down with a bunch of young people. So I'm talking from the range of 22 to sort of 24 to 25. They sit down and they've had exceptional money habits. And we had a young fella on today, didn't we, Ryan, that we were coaching through. And he sort of said, I said, mate, where did you learn your exceptional money habits from? He said, oh, nobody taught me good money habits, but I had lots of examples of what not to do.
Yeah.
And I said, that's just as important, and it's just as powerful to be able to see those examples of what not to do when you're a young fella or a young lady, and you're in one of those, you're in one of those circumstances where you've got a new job in the Defence Force, you're being paid more than you've ever been paid in your entire life. You can start to have that living expenses creep, where instead of buying that bottle of Absolute, you go and buy that bottle of Grey Goose. Don't do that, ladies and gentlemen. Instead of eating at home, you start eating out. I think there's a famous quote that said, when I get money in my bank account, my stomach becomes allergic to food at home. We don't want to do that, ladies and gents. We want to be able to make sure that we're living to our means with those goals in mind that we have. Those goals in mind, when you start working on a property portfolio, we're talking about delayed gratification. It's not just about jumping in the door and being able to get those returns at the boring end of the curve, as Jace Cosgrove says. We want to be able to put structures in place, and this comes back to why we have those risk identifications and risk mitigations in place, so we can hold these properties in the market over time. We want to be able to make sure that we can hold them over time, so long as those properties are servicing our needs and servicing our portfolio, to whereby we then have the option over those properties to be able to restructure, to be able to suit our circumstances, like I'm sure you're doing right now, Simo.
Yeah, absolutely. I've just by virtue of the amount of time that I have been investing, some of my loans are reasonably small in comparison to, not their current prices and everything. I did finish another investment property just in October last year, but just through me having a stable job, my wife working, our borrowing capacity is still there to allow us to go and buy our next our next home or our home. But sometimes people do need to have a bit of consolidation period between their investing sort of time frame, consolidate for a period, and then move into that home buying time there as well. But I've actually got someone that I was working with, who's another client coming through. He's already purchased one property, and then we're looking at getting another one for him. He's decided to press pause for about 12 months or so. He did save very hard and very well for the first property, got the first property. It's been operational for a little while now with the tenants in place. He just wants to live a little. So he just wants to spend the next 12 months having a little bit more of that freedom. And then he didn't want to have to go straight into that sort of savings pain of putting away the vast majority of his free capital. He wanted to be able to spend a little bit, which is perfectly fine. You don't have to nail it all in the first 5 years. It's taken me 15 or 16 years to get where I am now. It doesn't happen in just a few years. So it's perfectly fine. Take a gap year, basically. Take a gap year, treat yourself a little bit, live life a little bit. But then once you do switch that mindset back on again to, right, I've consolidated, I might have paid down some debts, and then, just hook back in, tighten those belts, eat at home a little bit.
That's the beauty of our macro planning cycles, right? When we sit down with clients, is we talk about, when do you want to bring these properties to life? Does it suit you at the moment? And for some people, it's like, I've got one, I need a breather. I want to go to Europe. I want to learn to play guitar, whatever it might be, as long as it's not salary sacrifice car. Then we implement that into the timeline and the planning cycle, and it allows them to breathe a bit more. And I think it's a really pivotal part of the planning series that Axon go through with our clients.
And that's what I love about Axon as well, is that we're not all about go, get as many as you can, as quick as you can.
Yeah.
It's much more measured. It's a much more well thought out plan and process. And yeah, we're here for the long game. We don't want to burn people out and smash them with too many properties too soon, stretch them too far, where they could potentially then lose that property or lose all their properties.
Yep.
We don't want that. We want their overall health and financial well-being to be sound and solid and not be a stressful process at all.
Well, it becomes a futile exercise, right? If you have to kill the goose that lays the golden egg. And so for us, because we've got a delayed gratification approach in the way that we take on our clients, we also, very strongly encourage that delayed gratification approach, whereby they understand they don't necessarily have to achieve everything overnight. That's why our goals are 10 to 15 year goals. That's why we're pitching out to the long run. And when we're taking people through the prepare, accumulate, consolidate, and enjoy, people will bounce between that accumulate and consolidate component of the Axon model. They'll bounce between the two depending on their personal circumstance. Like if someone comes to us as a single dingle and they come in and they got one income, no debt, and they've got a bunch of savings, they jump inside that. They're probably only going to, particularly in the current environment, they're probably only going to be able to get one, maybe two properties if they are, extremely astute with their finances. They're probably only going to put themselves in that position to get one, maybe two, if they've been really good with their money. And then we hold. Because we don't, as you rightly said just before, Simo, we don't want to put people in stressful positions. We don't want to have to kill the goose that lays a golden egg. So until their circumstances change, such as their LVR dramatically changes, their loan to value ratio, that is, or they meet that significant other that comes in with another set of income to be able to assess against their borrowing capacity, we will hold fire until our portfolio is in a position. And and one of the things that we're really highlighting and sort of drumming now is once you're inside the wire with Axon, once you're inside the Axon family, it's not a case of just in the door, out the back. We have ongoing coaching and mentoring that we sort of tap onto, every 6 to 12 months, where you can sit back down with your coach and you can go through that process. We'll update your plan and we'll do a reassessment of where your portfolio is. And if it is the right time for you to bring another property to life, we'll then take you back through the planning cycle of bringing that property to life for you in a safe and controlled manner.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. What else, Simo? What else has been happening in the property specialist space, mate?
Oh, right. Well, we're starting to see some land registrations over the last, I want to say like 3 or 4 weeks. We had a lot of just during the COVID process where the developers were bringing forward land stages quicker or sooner because it was at that time when the home builder grant was available. A lot of people that were going to buy properties in 2 or 3 years with those grants and all the different grants that were available to them were able to bring their purchases forward. So the developers saw this, they sold their stages earlier, and we had periods of time of up to 18 months that we wait for land registration. We're just going through or coming out of a glut of that. CJ Wynn, land reg, so yeah, we're seeing a glut of those properties come through now. We've been waiting 18 months, and those clients have had amazing capital growth over that time as well, without even having a house on the block. Just a few $1,000s down in most cases for the bloody deposit for the land, and they've been able to realise some huge capital gains, great capital gains. And yeah, we're seeing a lot of those come through now. A lot of the land that we're looking at for people coming through now is much closer. 3, 4, 6 months instead of the massive 18 months, which is fantastic. It means that they can get through the process, they can submit their expression of interest, do their contracts, wait just a couple of months, 2, 3, 4 months in some cases, get their finance sorted out, and then start the build. It sort of helps with that timeline that you and Ryan have been talking about, the macro timeline that we work out with the clients. If there is a shorter turnaround there, then we can get it done. We can get that property through. We can get the construction finished and the tenants in place, and then paying or helping out with the mortgage payments and the expenses for the property. And then, yeah, we can do that. We can then review the client situation, go again, wait 12 months, but at least the property's then operational. For me as well, though, having to wait 18 months for that land registration, there's potential there over a longer time period where things can change. Salary sacrifice cars, for example, changes to jobs, changes to personal situations, personal lives, babies. That's 18 months is plenty of time to pop out a baby or two. That can drastically affect your borrowing capacity.
Got some news, mate.
But when we do have those shorter land registration timeframes, there's less chance or less opportunity for other life things to get in the way to disrupt that plan. And I'm really liking that at the moment.
Yeah, and so if you're listening, ladies and gentlemen, I think the takeaway of that is when you're going through that land registration period, if you've jumped in, you've got your price point, your timeline, your location, you've jumped through and you've done your process and risk, and you understand exactly what's going to occur, and you do your research, your location, and you've got everything's good to go. You throw your EI down, you're excited. Maintain that focus on the 10-meter target that's in front of you. Even if there is a bit of a delay in that land registration time, as Simo's just touched on before, the value of that land is going up. Please wrap yourself in cotton wool as you go through that process, because as we said 2 weeks ago, we ride these bumps with you guys. So for nothing else, if it's just to keep our hearts in our chest, please make sure that you're wrapping yourself in cotton wool and you're maintaining a focus on the 10-meter target. That is what we are going, it's eating an elephant one bite at a time, right? When we're talking about developing these portfolios, we need to make sure that we've got that at the front and center of our mind so that we don't let those larger muscle movements get in our way. Now, if you're going to have a baby, you don't need to call Simo or Ryan or myself and ask for permission. And please, if you're going to do that, please tell your parents first before you come and speak to us and let us know. But on the back channel, just give us a heads up so that we know what's going on, so that we can apply that to the plan and understand what the outcomes are likely to be for us in the perspective of where does our borrowing capacity go? What's the impact on us? If mum's going to stay off work or if dad's going to stay off work, what's the impact of that going to be when we're talking about wealth development strategies? What the overall impact will be for us to be able to risk identify and risk mitigate. No, Fran, we are not. For those of you out there that don't know, and I'm sure most of you do, my lovely wife, Fran Salim, works at Axon as well. And we've been having a negotiation. Some might call it a negotiation, some might not, over whether we should have another child or not. I think maybe that should be an Axon vote that we throw up on the
chuck a poll up.
chuck a poll up and see.
It's going to backfire. That is going to backfire on you big time.
Fantastic. One of the other trends that I've chatting to our clients on the whilst we're going through the coaching series and getting an understanding of where people are coming from. I just want to say this up front: having a little bit of knowledge can be even more dangerous than having no knowledge at all. Like, there's a reason. When I don't ask Ryan to go out there and fix my car, because Ryan's not a mechanic. He's a town planner and he's a RAF veteran and he's now a coach. When you come to us, as the experts to be able to develop your portfolios and be able to understand what it is that you're trying to achieve, please understand that we are coming from a very, very objective opinion. Like, for us, the decisions that you make and the actions that you take won't change our lives, but we absolutely know that they will change your lives, from when we're, from that point forward that you choose to execute those plans. It's a little bit funny when we get someone, hey, isn't that right, Ryan? When we get someone that comes in with a little bit of knowledge that sort of, putters their way through the initial coaching and doesn't quite hit the mark on anything, and it starts to identify real gaps of knowledge in their approach to things. Yeah,
and it's certainly it's happened a few times, particularly around location selection. Some people sort of knowing, I think we spoke about it last time on the live around potential Adelaide investments. We had one recently around Perth investments. And obviously we coached them through the 7 ingredients to a healthy property market and why those places don't necessarily meet that. But yeah, that can potentially come with what you're talking about, which is overconfidence, which can kind of get in the way of your competence, I guess, cup. So it's a good lesson. It's a good coaching session. To kind of educate people on different ways of thinking.
If you're sitting at home, ladies and gents, and you're both, even if you're not both full-time employed, even if you've got one at work and one sitting at home, I can assure you that you don't have as many hours in the day to be able to do the level of research with diligence and context as to what is occurring in the market as those experts inside of Axon who live this and breathe this on a day-to-day basis. When we've got absolute weapons like Simo and Damo and James going out there and doing their on-the-ground reports, which they just went out and did last week. They went out to up to the Northern Growth Corridor for us to be able to, have a look at what's going on the ground and be able to provide that context for us in the office. So we're making up-to-date informed decisions on, on what's required and what's best for, for those the new clients coming through the door. What else, Simo? What's been happening, mate? Talk about our vision. What about our vision statements? Let everyone know about how that went.
Yeah, it was good. For everyone that doesn't know, Axon is very big on allowing us as like the employees of Axon, the team, to be able to have personal development through a lot of the different stages of the business. Just like you've come to the coaches for your property coaching, Robbie and Tamara go to a group that provides business coaching. And part of that was education around processes and different elements and how we structure and work within the business. And one of those being the personal development side is that we came up with, or everyone came up with, their individual personal vision statement. And it's only, depending on how you structure it, it can just be a single line sentence, or it can be a few sentences within a paragraph. And it, basically, the way we're structuring them, looking at them, is what we basically want to achieve in the next 3 months, or what our vision was for ourselves individually, with some work elements there as well, what we want to do within the next 3 months. I don't have mine on hand, but did you want to share yours, Luke?
I will, mate, if you just give
I'll have
me
a bit of a look at
second.
mine as well.
Give me 1 second. I'll just drag it across. I'll have to read it because, as most of you know, I'm fairly verbose when it comes to speaking. I'm also fairly verbose when it comes to writing things like vision statements and the like. As Simo said, the context of this was for us to be able to reflect on the type of person that we are and what it is that we want, what it is that we not only bring to the business, but we bring to our clients in the defence community. We will be sharing these, ladies and gents. I think Ryan and myself and Robbie are going to throw ours up so you can have a look. Now, all of these were written with the we weren't going to do that initially. So initially, it was just supposed to be for our own sort of, our own understanding and our own reflection on who we are. But we thought that it would be such a good idea because we like people to have an understanding of the fabric of who makes us, or what makes us up as people in the business, so that we're not, we're not just people sitting across from the screen. You get an understanding that we are. We are human beings as well, and we are veterans who care about the defence community. So my vision statement was, I pride myself in my ability to relate to our clients through the perspective of having successfully gone through the process. I bring energy, focus, and determination to getting the best outcome for our clients. I'm a highly effective and vivacious communicator who gets the message to Garcia. For those of you who don't know what that is, please go away and look that up. It's a little bit of a personal reference to, for myself. My goal is to foster growth, expertise, and relentless development in myself, our team, and our clients. My principal focus is to foster a collective understanding of when Axon wins, we all win. My vision is to bring the best version of myself to the world, being the best dad, husband, professional, and coach. So that was just a little snippet of, sort of what makes me tick and what are the things that I pride myself in doing. And as I'm sure most of you will identify out there, that a lot of that is focused on bringing the best version of myself to the defence community by being the best person I can to be the best coach. That means developing myself. That means, ongoing continual learning. Like all of those things we espouse of our clients going through the Axon journey, we hold ourselves to account when it comes to those as well.
Yeah, I think it was a really powerful tool, one, to sit down as a team and listen to everybody's statements. But I think for those at home, even if it's just you sitting in your room and writing it down and you're the only person that sees it, it's a really, really powerful tool to articulate on paper or on screen, what it is you're striving to achieve. It's a really powerful tool. I didn't think it would when I was starting to write it, but yeah, it was quite a insightful process for sure.
It gets the mind thinking. It gets the gears turning inside there, because it's stuff that you inadvertently or intimately know about yourself, but until you put it down on paper and you see it written there, you go, holy shit, that's significant. That's powerful. It actually means something to me.
Yeah. And isn't it also, and I know we're using the terms like powerful a lot, but isn't it also extremely powerful when you sit across the room from a bunch of people, you know, a group of people, a collective, and you can see how aligned they are inside of, you know, and in this context, aligned in a veteran way, aligned in a veteran spouse way, but more importantly, aligned in a business way in what it is that Axon is bringing forward, putting our best foot forward for our clients. It was really, really insightful seeing that how much every one of our staff members put Axon at the center and getting the best outcome for our clients, you know, at the center of who they are and what they want to achieve. Like, I think Robbie and Tamara have done an outstanding job in plucking, if I may so myself, plucking the absolute best of the veterans coming in. I'm kidding. Plucking a very high performing and very strong bunch of veterans that are coming out of the defense community, being able to provide us with a soft landing and then of course give us the opportunity to give back as we go through there. Just got a question from Kiani. I was about to ask you about the location. I'm set on a school catchment. When is best to ask you guys about that? Mate, that's a little bit like a how long is a piece of string question. When we are talking about, depends on your portfolio specifically, and it depends on what you're trying to achieve out of your portfolio. It's essential that you sit down with a coach and go through that process so they can have an understanding of what it is you want to achieve. Like we discussed right back at the start with Dave, when Dave's going through the process of buying, you know, his forever home that he's living in, he's able to buy that with his heart and his wallet because he's had a delayed gratification approach to wanting to bring that to life for him and his lovely wife, Kira. He's now in a position whereby he can make those decisions based on his previous decisions because he's freed himself up financially to be able to do that. So reach out, touch base with us. We're happy to sit down and go through your personal circumstances and then talk about that. It's a little bit difficult to do it unless we understand where it is that you're trying to acquire this property inside of that catchment area. It's difficult to do unless we have a detailed understanding of what the price point is available to you in the price range, and then ultimately what it is you're trying to achieve out of that acquisition as well.
Yeah, it's certainly it's really dependent on where you are in your acquisition of your portfolio. I mean, if you're looking at a specific school catchment that's not in an area that meets the 7 ingredients to a healthy property market, you don't necessarily want to poison the well expecting to drink from it later on. So it may not be, because the school catchment area is going to be 5-6 years, depending on whether it's primary or high school, and whether you're going to be posted to that location or if it is your forever location. So it really, really is dependent on sort of where you are in your macro lifeline and what else is going on in your portfolio.
Yeah, absolutely. And as you know, as you just touched on very strongly there, mate, like if you are making the decision with your heart and your wallet, and you're buying that house, it doesn't fucking matter if it goes up in value.
Yeah.
So it matters that you're in a location that you want to be in, surrounded by services that you want to have access to, and the school is obviously one of those as well. Discharge 10-year Plan with DOAS. I'm discharging, so I'm not silly. Excellent. I love it. I just want to jump back for a second there. Franny's throwing hers up as well. So I'd like to get an opportunity to read that out. Now you'll see there's a little bit of I don't want to say repetition in there from mine because they were all her words and she certainly didn't copy me. But I do like to think of myself as a little bit of a coach around the house as well. So she's probably going to shoot me for that. She said to continuously focus on bringing the best version of myself, both professionally and personally, to those around me as a means to become an inspiring point of reference for what I do and how I live. They're absolutely, absolutely fantastic words there. I love it. Kiani, if you want to reach out, mate, I'm sure we'll just jump in and get your contact details or reach out to us via our website, and we'll take you through the process, and you can get a great understanding of what it is and how we can sort of understand your position at the moment. Congratulations on discharging, or commiserations. I think congratulations are in order by the laughing face, mate. If your first Anzac Day out is anything like mine as a veteran, because it was my first one out too, mate, you'll absolutely love the opportunity to go out and reflect on what it is that you've achieved over that, set a ring back up. Oh, right. Back after discharge. All right. You'll absolutely love, mate, getting out and having an opportunity to reflect on all of those things that you achieved over your 10 years. Because 10 years is no small feat to sort of commit yourself to something. Like that's not, and particularly at the moment, I think the Army, or at least the Army, is sitting at about 5.5 years as their average retention rate now. So mate, well and truly doubled that and got yourself some long service leave in the process as well.
Yeah.
One of the, as we're wrapping up tonight, one of the other things that I wanted to talk about is the correction in the market and the natural cycles associated to the acquisition of properties and the growth in property markets. When we go, every single property and every single market will have a natural cycle whereby it'll go through a boom, it'll go through a correction, it'll go through stabilization, and then it'll go back through a growth phase. Every single market in Australia will have that. Okay, it doesn't matter whether you are in the heart of Sydney. Sydney's been a little bit of an anomaly, particularly over the last 20 years, but we're starting to see that now with the pressures applied to it, with the increasing interest rates and the slowdown of international migration that's coming across. We're starting to see the impact of that now. Like if a place is overinflated already, we're going to see those larger impacts in those areas. Well, I guess the context of what I'm trying to articulate here is that just because we are having a correction in the market, whether that's one of the markets or a number of micro markets, it's absolutely not an indicator of a bust across the markets. You will see the media doing exactly what the media do. They are there to sell blood, sweat, and tears. And if it cries or if it dies, it sells. Is that what I think? I think I just did a simo then.
Yeah, it's a good one, mate. It sounds good. Sounds legit.
If it bleeds, it sells, or some shit like that.
Yeah.
The media has a job to do, and they will identify any opportunity they can to sort of get those clicks, to get those eyeballs on there. And so what they are going to do every single time is always make it out to be the most extreme or the most severe circumstances that are, being experienced. But they'll hone in on one specific area and they'll highlight that as a bust, and the market's going under. Simo, how have the areas been going that we invest in, mate?
Yeah, it's interesting, isn't it? The media news outlets and agencies, and they only focus, the numbers that they publish are predominantly the capital cities.
Yep.
Melbourne, Sydney, Brisbane. I don't even think Gold Coast gets a look in. We're not that big. All the other ones as well. And when they do that, it tends to largely be around the CBD as well, which is predominantly apartments. So it has some, but not an awful lot of bearing on what's happening, like you just said, in the rest of Australia. I've not seen, when we're looking and researching our areas, we don't just look at build prices and the land prices. We also look at what houses are currently selling in those areas for well. It gives us a bit of an indication of the health of those areas. I've not seen any reductions in our preferred locations. Things aren't going to go up, or the prices aren't going to go up. You're not going to get as much capital growth in those areas because obviously we have just been through one of those growth phases. We might get a little bit of a pause. We might get some small contraction in those areas, especially the capital CBD areas. Yep. Our investment locations, it might just pause for a while. It might come down a few thousand, 10, 15, whatever it is, $1,000. But it's just the natural cycle. I like to say zoom out. I do that for a lot of charts with other stuff as well. And if you're focusing too tightly in on what's happening right here, right now, you miss what has happened, and the overall picture. Zoom out a little bit, have a bit more of a bigger macro view, and you get those boom and periods and the little bits of retracement, but ultimately it's always up and to the right.
Right.
And by the way, that is not a guarantee. That's just a general observation.
Oh, mate, I love that. I love it. It really echoes what we were talking about before about that delayed gratification approach. You don't necessarily need your property prices going up all of the time. And that's one of the considerations that we take when we talk about diversification in our portfolios. Okay, you want to have a diversified portfolio so you don't have all of your eggs in one basket. Okay, but if you take that macro perspective on what's happening and watch those trend lines, we're talking about trends over 15, 20-year periods to be able to, to get that sustained capital growth.
Yeah.
We don't want what happened in the market to continue to occur. Like, it's not, when we're targeting sustained capital growth, that first word there, ladies and gentlemen, is sustained. It's not sustainable for a market to be able to grow at 20% year on year. Like, that is an absolute anomaly that I think we probably won't see for some time. Like, I don't have a crystal ball, but I suspect that we won't see that type of growth again, over the next sort of 15 to 20 years, unless, of course, something dramatic happens. Like, Southeast Queensland in particular, it's no secret that we love Southeast Queensland. It's got massively increasing population growth, diminishing land supplies. If you're targeting on those right areas, we've got beautiful master plan communities up here that are designing out those entire spaces so people can live, work and play in those areas. Okay, but we want to be able to target those areas that have that sustained growth over time through increasing population and decreasing land supply. That's pure economics for us. So that's why I asked you, Simo, before, and you rightly said, mate, like, when the media is standing there and banging the drum of everything is collapsing and and we're heading to a cliff, the areas that we are investing in have seen a continued sustainable growth over the last sort of 2 to 3 years, particularly in the last sort of 4 to 5 months when we've seen them throw the anchors on and try and slow down the economy. We're still seeing those growth areas because we won't compromise when it comes to the 7 ingredients to a healthy property market, because we know that fucking works. Yeah. It absolutely works. Like, we've got a very, very, very bespoke, very cookie cutter business model that we apply across the board to every single client that comes through the door. But we will apply it in a very bespoke way that suits each one of the clients. What does that mean? That means that we'll identify those areas. We'll find one of the areas inside of our selected area range that will provide you with the opportunity to be able to invest, depending on your price point, your timeline, your location, and all that sort of stuff. What have we got here, CJ? Couple of mates discussed the Samuel Bennett model as it was on the news a few weeks ago. Any substance to that from a market tracking and prediction model, or is it just a gimmick? Mate, can I take that question on notice? I'll need to look at that model and I'll need to look at that article. If you can flick that across to us, buddy, I'll have a look at that. Robbie and I'll sit down and we'll pontificate over that, and then we'll get back to you, mate. I'm not answering your question. I promised I would answer every question, but I need to do a little bit deeper digging into that because I don't want to give you the bum steer on anything.
Yeah, it's an economic model. I think it was from like 1970s or something, but that's about the knowledge that I've got. And it talks about peaks and troughs.
Okay.
But that's the level of my knowledge. So definitely, super interested to dive into that one deeper and do a bit of learning. And we can bring it up next podcast. Take that question on notice.
Yeah, mate, we'll have a chat. We'll have a look into that, mate. If you can flick those details across to us, we'll get Simo to dictate it for us, and we'll have a look, mate. And we'll get back to you on our opinion based on that model. Look, and I'm making an assumption here that after what Ryan said, if we're talking about peaks and troughs in each of those markets, of course we're going to see that. Like, a market doesn't continue to peak all of the time. It can't. That's not sustainable. It's not growth in a sustainable way. We want to make sure that that's as I said before, that's why we have diversification in our portfolio. That's why we identify different locations, different price points, different different timelines for different reasons, depending on where you are in your process and what it is that you're trying to achieve. Just before we wrap up, ladies and gents, I will give you the heads up out there that we are going to take a break from our podcast. If you haven't listened to our podcast yet, jump on, give it a listen. You'll get to really understand how it is, where Axon came from, where the love child of Axon was born, and how it grew through. You go through the episodes with us, and you'll get to understand way more than you probably need to know about Dave, Ryan, and myself.
Very insightful.
Say again, mate. What was that?
Very insightful.
It's absolutely everything that comes out of your mouth is very insightful, Simo.
I'm sure it is.
Robbie, no worries, buddy. We've got you back, mate. Robbie's just thrown up and he said, sorry you missed this team. Not a problem at all, mate. You're on a hard-earned break. That's absolutely sure. I didn't stay in contact with you, mate, because you weren't down there watching the NRL, so I didn't have anything to talk to you about.
Yeah, that other kickball he was watching.
Yeah, some other AFL or something like that. He was, while he's away, the mice are, as I said before, the mice are here to play. Final word from you, Ryan.
Look, I think just to sum up that podcast, so it's going to be a short break so that we can focus our attention to other areas. So we'll still be putting out some content for you, but certainly I think just a big summary of the podcast to date. So if you're looking at specific stuff, season 1 is essentially how Axon was created. Season 2 is a whole bunch of SMEs within the property and finance area, and then season 3 we just have a kind of a mixed bag of guests like veterans, SMEs, all sorts of different people. So it's a bit of a different flavor this season. So depending on what you're after, jump in and grab some episodes, and I'm sure the podcast will be back again soon.
Well, ladies and gents, that brings us to the end of another Facebook Live. Thank you so much for joining us. I've absolutely thoroughly enjoyed this. If you've got any mates that are interested in sort of property portfolios or understanding what it is that they can the art of the possible, reach out to us. Get in contact with us. Dave, thanks very much, mate. Ryan, thanks very much. We will see you all in 2 weeks' time.